Greetings, everyone. We'll be started in just 1 minute. Thank you. So, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you for being with us today. I'm Lisa Moon. I'm the president and CEO of the Global Food Banking Network, and I will be your host for today's press call, Why Ending Food Waste Should Be on the Table at COP30. We have a great lineup of speakers today, but before we get started, I just wanted to go over some housekeeping. So the call is going to last about 1 hour. It will be recorded, and we will be sending out the recording of the call early next week via email. After speakers, we are going to have some time for questions and answers, and you can also drop questions in the chat at any time, and we will answer them as we go. We are delighted to have you all joining us, and this call, though, is intended first and foremost for media. So while others may be joining, we will be prioritizing questions from the press. So just a quick overview of our agenda, and we have just 1 hour, and it will be a very good use of time. I'm just going to give some very high-level framing comments about food loss and waste and some of the other challenges we're seeing in our food system. Then we'll discuss progress on these issues in terms of the nationally determined contributions, or NDCs, that will be announced at COP30. We're going to hear firsthand about how Chile has included food loss and waste in its NDC. We're also going to hear about how Sodexo is preventing and reducing this within their supply chain. We're going to see spotlighted some exciting food loss and waste solutions in action. And finally, we're going to hear how the private sector in Brazil is engaging on this issue. And then, of course, we're going to wrap up with some Q&A. Let's go ahead, though, and get started. As you all know on this call, the world is facing a truly tragic paradox. Globally, we are producing enough food for everyone, and yet millions of people go hungry every day. And at the same time, about 30 to 40% of all food that is being produced is lost and wasted. This happens in highly developed and emerging economies alike. It happens across the supply chain, starting on farms to manufacturers to retailers to restaurants, and of course, in all of our homes. And this waste degrades natural resources. It uses up 1/4 of water for agriculture, 1/4 of farmland, an area as big as China. And food waste is very expensive. It's estimated to sap about $1 trillion annually from the global economy. And as we get closer to COP30, we cannot forget as well that food loss and waste is responsible for 8 to 10% of global greenhouse gas emissions, which is about 4 times as many emissions as the airline industry. And it's a major producer of methane emissions, which are 86 times stronger than CO2 in terms of their impact on climate. And this is happening while we have about 1 in 11 people worldwide facing chronic hunger and over 2 billion people worldwide facing food insecurity. Despite this picture, though, there is some positive news to share. And the first thing is that reducing food loss and waste is a triple win. It increases the amount of food for people. It has financial benefits for farmers, businesses, and households, and it reduces pressure on the environment, including emissions. We also understand that many of the solutions to reduce food loss and waste, and we are already seeing some strong signs of progress. And the biggest development is that the connection between food systems and climate change is much more widely recognized than it was even 2 to 3 years ago. Food systems are now on the agenda of the international climate community. And at this climate COP, food and agriculture is one of the six main pillars on the official agenda. So, a growing number of countries are making commitments to tackle food loss and waste in their official NDCs. Other countries may not have included it in their NDCs, but many are putting together national strategies to reduce food loss and waste. And we are seeing a growing number of solutions take hold. So, at the Global Food Banking Network, or GFN, we work with community food banks in more than 50 countries that are connecting nutritious surplus food that would otherwise be discarded to people facing hunger and food insecurity. So, in this way, we are addressing climate challenges and improving the health and nutrition of people. Our colleagues on this call will provide more insights and examples of how countries, companies, and civil society organizations are taking action on food loss and waste, and why this is important and how we can build on this momentum at COP30 and beyond. So today, our organizations, including Champions 12.3 and the Global Action Drive, which includes the Global Food Banking Network, ReFed, World Resources Institute, the World Wildlife Fund, WRAP, the Global Methane Hub, China Agricultural University, and the Sustainable Development Solutions Network are going to call on every government to make food loss and waste a climate priority at COP30. The roadmap that we have laid out for food loss and waste reduction is divided into 4 steps. First, we would love to see commitments to UN Sustainable Development Goal Target 12.3, which is to halve food loss and waste by 2030, and embed that commitment into NDCs, national adaptation plans, and food system strategies. Second, to plan practical policies that translate ambition into measurable action. Third, to fund commitments with real resources and political will. And fourth, to measure and report food loss and waste data to track progress and evaluate impact. If we act now and we act boldly, we can absolutely live in a world with less food loss and waste and a place where we are seeing more of this food saved so that we can have greater access to food across the supply chain. I am now very pleased to welcome our first speaker, someone on a mission to bring circular living to every boardroom and every home, Catherine David, the CEO of WRAP. Catherine has spent her career building coalitions globally with businesses and governments to drive systems transformation, with particular expertise in the food packaging, textiles, and fast-moving consumer goods sectors. Catherine, thanks for being with us today. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Lisa, and hi everyone. Lovely to be with you today. I'm going to talk about the National Determined Contributions, the NDCs in particular, and why it's so important that we include food loss and waste in countries' NDCs. And I guess the first thing to say is that including food loss and waste in NDCs is one of the simplest, most cost-effective ways of delivering measurable progress on not just emissions, but resilience and equity. And in the next couple of minutes, I'm going to explain a little bit about why it matters, share how we're doing, so the latest numbers and what they mean, and talk a bit about what we do next. So firstly, as Lisa's pointed to, the reason action on food loss and waste matters is that it makes a huge contribution to global emissions. So up to 10% of all global emissions coming from food that's never eaten. There's also a real opportunity for speed and affordability. So reducing food loss and waste is one of the lower cost, high impact mitigation and adaptive measures that we can take. Countries can act now using existing technologies, proven policies and partnerships which already exist. And of course, there are the social and economic benefits. So cutting food loss and waste can help improve food security, it can reduce household costs and bills, and it can support rural livelihoods, especially in countries like Cambodia and Sri Lanka, for example, where post-harvest loss is significant. And finally, there's a moral imperative too. So in a world where hundreds of millions of people are facing hunger, wasting food is indefensible. So tackling food loss and waste is both a kind of climate and moral necessity. So how are we doing? Last year we talked about 24 countries at the last COP who were including food loss and waste in their NDCs. The good news is this has grown from 24 last year to 30 this year, which is a positive shift, but still far short of what's needed. So over 80% of countries are still not seizing this opportunity. And those of you who've seen the latest WRI climate action report will show that across the board, none of the indicators in NDCs are on track to meet 1.5-degree targets, and food loss and waste is, of course, also not on track with that level of participation. However, some leaders are showing what's possible, and I wanted to highlight some of those examples. And I know colleagues on the call will get into more depth of some of the examples of what's happening. But to name a few kind of interesting examples, Colombia has integrated food loss and waste into its climate strategy, putting it alongside food security and circular economy goals. We've seen the UAE launching the Waste to Zero during COP28, which focused on reducing emissions from waste management activities, improving recycling rates, so positioning food loss and waste alongside a bunch of innovation and investment in waste infrastructure, creating new jobs, and of course, decreasing global reliance on imported resources. We've seen Chile and Indonesia linking food waste action to methane reduction and sustainable consumption strategies. And of course, our host for COP, Brazil, a country which produces around 160 million tons of food annually, of which around 55 million tons, so almost a third, is wasted. We're seeing huge action from private sector and government, and moving towards embedding food loss and waste in policy in a really systemic way across that whole system, and a number of really interesting strategies happening there. Where I'm based in the UK, we've been working on this topic for some years, and we've seen what's possible when government commitment and long-term direction is met by business innovation and collaboration through the Food Pact, as well as action on household food waste. So we've seen food and drink manufacturers cut waste by over 30% in under a decade, with household food waste also falling. Even here in the UK, we know we need to accelerate the pace of change to deliver on the UK's global commitments, but a really strategic approach is bearing fruit. And we see a similar story in the Netherlands, where there's been a huge amount of action cutting waste by over a third in retail since 2018, for example. So the story we're seeing is that there is progress, there's real progress happening out there with known solutions, but it's partial. And we need to keep pushing for that universal inclusion of food loss and waste in NDCs. And if we don't do that, we know that we'll fall short of that Paris 1.5-degree target. Thinking a bit about then what we do next, the tools exist. What's missing is that coordinated global will. And a big part of today's conversation and the story that we'll be taking to COP is about making COP30 that moment when every country puts food loss and waste reduction at the centre of its climate plan. We can all encourage that by showing what's possible and build from the 30 countries today to inspire the remaining over 160 with the opportunity that reducing food loss and waste presents. There's a few factors we think can help encourage that and tell that story. We can talk about the climate finance opportunity and the contribution there towards food loss and waste prevention. Cold chain infrastructure, data systems play a big role there. We can talk about strengthening global targets and implementation frameworks. So, for example, looking at embedding SDG 12.3 within the UNFCCC process. You're going to hear from Laura from Sodexo, but corporate initiatives like Sodexo's, Tesco, Walmart, Winnow show what private sector leadership can do and provide ideas for how governments can embed those in their strategies. And for us all, framing food loss and waste as that cross-cutting solution that can support adaptation, support mitigation, but also generate those other benefits around food security and economic stability. Without action, we'll see this ongoing waste of a third of all food. But with action, we've got this huge potential to feed millions more people, reduce methane and CO2, and strengthen resilience in supply chains and communities. So really, the message I'm hoping to leave you with is that reducing food loss and waste is one of the most practical, affordable, and morally urgent actions we can take on climate. Countries from Somalia to Colombia are showing what's possible, And at COP30, we're really hoping that others will be inspired to follow their lead. We have those solutions, and now we need the resolve and the follow through. Thank you very much. Back to you, Lisa.
Thank you so much, Catherine. So, building on this conversation of NDCs, I am delighted today to be joined by someone who was integral in getting food loss and waste included in Chile's NDC update, Tomás Sayeg Pais. Tomás has been working at Chile's Ministry of Environment and has been the head of the ministry's Circular Economy Office since 2022. Tomás, you know how this all works in practice, and we're looking forward to hearing from you. Over to you.
Thank you, Lisa, and to all who are listening. So I'll tell you a bit more about what we're doing in Chile on the issues of food loss and waste. In 2024, in Chile, we did a study to characterize household waste, and the study concluded that about 48% of it is organic waste, and the majority of it, so 29% of municipal waste, is actually edible waste. We measured that. And at the same time, and although in the decades since the 90s, Chile has progressed a lot in many respects, still about 20% of the population confronts food insecurity. Besides, Chile faces a challenging situation regarding waste treatment facilities. Most organic waste still goes to landfills, and landfills are quickly reaching their end of life. And it is ever more difficult to build new ones, as no one really wants them near. I think these are the main reasons Chile decided to incorporate the commitment in its NDC to elaborate by 2026 a national strategy to prevent and reduce food loss and waste. The process to develop this strategy already started at the end of 2024. We already went through an extensive participatory process with more than a dozen workshops and an online survey, among other activities. And we should soon be publishing a proposal of a strategy for public consultation, which will have 4 pillars: more sustainable food systems, institutional and regulatory framework, food culture and education, and innovative technologies and solutions. Yet the strategy is only the latest in a series of efforts that have been recently undertaken to promote this agenda. So I'll name a few others. We in Chile created in 2021 a national commission for the prevention and reduction of food loss and waste, which is led by the Ministry of Agriculture. There's also a couple of very important programs to promote food banks. There's the Microfood Bank program promoted by the Ministry of Social Development and Family. And which aims to improve the food security of the most vulnerable population by recovering food in good condition from open-air markets. Between 2023 and 2024, 83 microbanks were established in the country's 16 regions, and currently there are 131 microbanks operating. And there's a second program, Ecomercados Solidarios, Solidarity Eco Markets, also by the Ministry of Social Investment, the Ministry of Social Development and Family. And this is also a food banks program that aims to support families facing food insecurity by recovering food that would otherwise go unsold. And in this case, the program operates in facilities managed by municipalities with the participation of social organizations, local residents, and donors, among others. So I have mentioned some initiatives, but these are mostly state-sponsored initiatives, and I really want to recognize the many other initiatives that have been put forward by non-state actors, such as NGOs, which focus on this issue, academics who do research on it, and also non-state-sponsored food banks that have cropped up in the country and which do great work. So we have some progress in Chile, but we still have a long way to go, and I really hope this agenda keeps growing and that we make rapid progress on food loss and waste. Thank you very much.
Tomás, thank you so much for those remarks. I think you really capture how much coordination and cooperation is needed to really get this type of momentum at the national level. So thanks for being here to share that with us. I am now here to welcome Laura Lordell. So Laura leads waste and water strategies at Sodexo. She oversees both the design and implementation of related policies. With a background in the human sciences, Laura strives to connect the company's action to their broader structural context. And Laura, Sodexo is also a significant partner to food banking organizations around the world. So thank you for that. And thanks for being here today to share with us about Sodexo's food loss and waste efforts.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you for the introduction. And also thank you for shedding some light on this very important topic. We truly believe that addressing food loss and waste is one of the most comprehensive and unifying action we can take. So when it comes to Sodexo, we are a major food services and facility management company. We operate across 45 countries, and most importantly, we serve 80 million people every day. So fighting food waste is, of course, one of our most emblematic commitments. And I believe that our journey to food waste reduction is quite representative of how the business world has evolved, taking commitments, gaining maturity, and making food waste reduction an integral part of business performance. So, as always, with corporate sustainability, it all starts with direct operation and understanding that food waste is not only an environmental topic, this is also a business issue. Because when it comes to Sodexo, food waste is only the tip of the iceberg. Behind it lie operational inefficiency, poor on-site management, perfectible relationship with the client, and ultimately economic loss. So this is the reason why we decided back in 2019 to take two very strong commitments. The first one is to deploy WasteWatch, our global food waste reduction program across 85% of our sites. And the second one is to reduce food waste by 80% in 2025, focusing on pre-consumer food waste. So today, I would say that such bold pledges are less popular, but they were very necessary at the time to mobilize the entire organization and to drive change. So we decided to invest heavily in the WasteWatch program. And, not only in tracking devices, we also put a lot of efforts and energy in trainings, engagement program, food donation program, and as importantly, we integrated food waste performance into our business reviews so that it can be deeply connected to our business performance. We also put in place financial incentives and a very strong governance going from site level to group SLT level. So the results of all these efforts will be communicated tomorrow, where we are going to communicate the results for FY25. But I can already share that we are very proud of all the progresses we've made, and not only in terms of KPI and reaching the targets. What was very important for us was to conduct a transformational change. Because what is important is that food waste reduction becomes part of daily operation, becomes part of business as usual. And we were able to do so because we demonstrate that when you save food, you're not only doing what is right, you're also saving money. And this is the reason why we feel confident that the program is here and is going to stay in the future, because this is now totally embedded into our daily operations. And once again, we have this adequation between environmental benefits and economic benefits. What has been very interesting and beneficial to Sodexo as well, working on food waste reduction, is that it pushed us to go beyond our direct operation and to work more closely with our ecosystem. So just giving you some examples. When it comes to the International Food Waste Coalition, so RAP, we are very happy to have peers, but also competitors and solution provider working together so that we can work on fixing a food waste standard for the industry. It was very of great help because it helps us having confidence in our own methodology and in the way we measure food waste, but it also builds credibility on the food waste data we share externally. Then came the question of food loss, which is a bit more complex from a Sodexo perspective because this is not our direct operation, but this is all about trying to collaborate with our supplier and engage our whole supply chain. And we have started many suppliers engagement programs around the food loss topic. And what is very interesting is that it allowed us to reinforce our sourcing, our responsible sourcing program. And it's also allowed us to bring more transparency and traceability in our supply chain, which is, as we know, a big challenge for environmental topics. So once again, working on food waste, it really allowed us to make huge progress with our supplier engagements and trying to progress with our whole supply chain. And finally, it also led us to collaborate with our consumers. Because when trying to reduce the amount of plate waste, we realized that this is not only about doing awareness campaign and that we needed to integrate plate waste reduction within the design of our food offer, which was, a real change in the way we were addressing the topic so far. So to conclude, I would say that fighting food waste has had a lot of co-benefits for Sodexo. It has generated the savings, of course, but it has also helped us run better operation and improve our value proposition. And this is just illustrating all the co-benefits businesses can have in fighting food loss and waste. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Laura. We'll look forward to seeing the data when it's released tomorrow. Next, I'm going to pass the floor to someone who's been key in driving forward solutions to food loss and waste in the US and has inspired many others around the world. Dana Gunders, the president of ReFed. Dana has dedicated her career to helping industry, policymakers, and consumers activate solutions to reduce food loss and waste, and she now runs the leading US-based nonprofit that is focused on how to reduce food waste. So Dana, over to you.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Hi, everyone. As Lisa said, I'm with ReFed. We're a US-based nonprofit that is working to solve food waste, and we're really kind of a central resource, especially for providing data on the topic and analyzing solutions. And we also run programs to help drive adoption of those solutions. Food waste is such a system-wide problem, and there's no one single solution that will solve it all. It certainly is different for different economies, as well as different products and different sectors. But the good news is that a lot of solutions do exist, and more are being developed all the time. And they're driving real progress because this issue, as challenging as it is, it really is solvable. So we have over 50 solutions analyzed on our website and could probably name 100 more. I'm just going to highlight a few different areas to give you a sense of a few of them. Certainly, there are a lot that fall in the category of technology. And especially these days with artificial intelligence, we're seeing a lot of innovation that is helping to create smart technologies for food distribution, such as sensors that are, enabled with Wi-Fi and real-time monitoring systems that help route products so that they have more shelf life. We're seeing it used in forecasting and demand planning, where artificial intelligence is helping to really pin down exactly how much of each product is needed at all the different stores that some of these companies are managing. We're also seeing it used in pricing and through kind of markdown alert apps that maybe help stores and restaurants sell product at the last minute through different apps and alert systems. And a neat thing that's really coming down the pike is the ability for satellite data to be used and other weather data to be used to better predict some of these bigger natural disaster type of weather patterns. So with something like drought, for instance, these systems are allowing drought to be predicted a little bit better. And then when they can do that, they are then looking into ways that they can help get that information to farmers in advance, combine it with things like financing and other solutions, so that in the case of drought, for instance, the farmers can plant the right varieties, they could get access to water pumps and take other measures to really prepare in advance for such things. There's other technology like temperature sensors and hyperspectral imaging that are helping to reduce waste in the supply chain as well. And then we're seeing a lot around cold chains, and especially to address post-harvest loss in more developing economies. We are seeing things like solar-powered cold storage being put into markets that are helping both farmers, fishermen to really preserve their product a little bit longer, and that allows them not only to waste less, but also to sometimes fetch a better price when they have more time to sell it. Things as simple as hermetically sealed bags. Those are essentially like a grand plastic bag that can seal, but it helps reduce pests and it allows product to last a little bit longer, again, allowing growers to have a longer time to sell that product and fetch a better price. We're also seeing innovations like market stalls that have solar powered cooling on them, something called functional ice that is laden with a type of vinegar that can reduce microbial growth. So some really neat things happening there. But of course, it's not all technology. Just simple behavioral steps are really important solutions. There has been success around the world with consumer behavior campaigns, really helping to bring more awareness, educate consumers, reduce waste in households, and then employee engagement campaigns that help employees kind of see the importance of some of the operating procedures that they're being asked to do, as well as sometimes come up with their own solutions, since many times they are the ones handling the food and seeing what kind of solutions might work. And these all help to kind of prevent waste, but of course we are always going to have extra food. And before it goes to waste, food donation is such a critical solution that is a solution all around the world, and is especially important right now given the high food prices that we've seen over the last few years. One other solution we're seeing work in several different countries is to bring businesses together for a voluntary pre-competitive effort. These are happening in several countries. In the US, we have something called the US Food Waste Pact that was launched in December of 2023 at COP28. And this is led by our organization, ReFed, as well as the World Wildlife Fund in the US. And it aims to bring these businesses together to track and compare their data, to share in pilot projects and working groups where they can exchange best practices, and to identify projects where they can work together, especially up the supply chain. In the US, we have more than half of the grocery market that is participating in this project now, and about a quarter of the food service market. So we have really good participation, and it is showing to work. A similar project on the west coast of the US that was in place first, it was kind of the first iteration of this, showed that over 5 years, the grocers that were participating were able to reduce their rates of unsold food, which is essentially what was going to waste, by about 30% over a 5-year period. So that was the largest reduction ever recorded, and we're thrilled to see that project really growing. And not just here, in fact, in just this year in Brazil, WWF Brazil, in partnership with RAP, launched Sem Desperdício, which is its own voluntary agreement to help food businesses meet their food waste reduction targets. And I know we're going to hear more about that now. So thank you, Lisa.
Thanks, Dana, so much. So I'm really pleased now to welcome our final speaker. It takes us to the home of COP30 Brazil. Alessandra Fajardo is the Executive Technical Director at the Brazilian Business Council for Sustainable Development, and there she leads strategy to integrate and mainstream climate, biodiversity, food systems, water, decarbonization, a lot of things, among others, together. So thank you so much for being here, Alessandra. The floor is yours.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be joining this discussion. I share the Brazilian business perspective. At CBEDS, where I work, CBEDS is the Brazilian Business Council for Sustainable Development, and we represent around 100 companies that works in different parts of sustainability. Our mission is to translate exactly this ambition to implementation, to connect science to policy in business, and with that, be able to accelerate the low carbon transition in Brazil. As you said, we are approaching the COP30. There is a shared understanding with this, particularly with this president of COP, that the conference must deliver concrete outcomes. So André Corrêa do Lago, that is the ambassador and president of the COP, they create what we call the global mutirão. Mutirão in Portuguese is a collective effort to exactly rebuild trust and accelerate the implementation. So it makes us what we call non-state actors, that gives us the opportunity, like civil society, local governments, the business, to be able to be in the heart of this process. So as you said in the beginning here, we have a bigger chance to take to COP30 all this information and communication regarding food loss and waste, because it's been created the proper place with the mutirão to be listened and to be delivered. So he said that while the countries negotiate frameworks, the companies can bring this to life, and that is the moment. So regarding COP, we have the right time to create the momentum to bring this. So within CBEDS, we have three main focus for the COP. That is supporting the Brazilian NDC, of course, through tangible business action, the scaling decarbonization via sectorial coalitions. The president of the COP asked the Brazilian Business Council to create coalitions of the sector to bring levers to decarbonization for 6 special sectors, and in agriculture and food systems are one of them. And we brought this. Today I was with the former Minister of Agriculture of Brazil and a special envoy for agriculture, Roberto Rodrigues, especially delivering the results of this study, this material. And also we are showcasing solutions. As some of here said, and my previous here said, 50 solutions. We have solutions that are innovative, inclusive, regenerative, that can bring and close the gap between loss and waste. So all of this is here already, and we need only to scale up. So talking about the topic itself, Brazil food loss and waste have been gain unprecedented visibility. Recently, the government launched the National Policy on Food Loss and Waste. That is a landmark that creates tax incentives for food donations, ensuring also the legal safety for redistribution and foster innovation in logistic in the processing part. The private sector is essential to turn these policies in result, and the role is in the innovation, as said here before, in technology. So companies are investing in digital agriculture, post-harvest technology, and precision logistics to track and reduce loss across the value chain. Also, the practice with adoption of good agriculture practice, expanding store capacity, in order dramatically cutting the retail losses, and also incorporate goals and collaboration. Every time I see more companies, and we have more than 100 with us, including food loss and waste target in their ESG and climate strategy. So encourage other suppliers in the food chain to do the same. Here we talk about, we have some data that that I like to bring, that if food loss was a country, it would be the world third larger emitter, just outside the two first countries. So it's a big problem. 20%, 28% of the land used to produce food, does this food for 28% of the land never reach the table. So we lose a land of 20% of the land used for agriculture that never comes to our table. But when you see globally in a glance, you see that the Northern Hemisphere, if you put US and Europe, 50% of the food and loss is concentrated in waste, food waste, not loss, much more in picking the size, the color, the shape, the large portions. And if you look for Ecuador down at the 50%, for example, Latin America, the 50% is concentrated in production and handling and storage. If you go to sub-Saharan Africa, that number in this particular production and handling is over 70%. So it, of course, is just general. If you go to some parts of Brazil, you have less, is much more in consumption as US and Europe, and if other areas is production. So how we manage to have the cold storage, all the things for all the foods and different. So it's a complex, although the solutions is here, as some of my colleagues already said, the solution is here, you have solution, but how can we scale this and how we can tackle the solution for the right place, for the right moment in this. So at COP30, reducing the food loss and waste will be recognized as a direct lever to the climate action. So some of the data brings also that if you reduce 50% of the food loss and waste, we closed the gap of the food production, the needed. So it's very connected with that. Food waste means less waste means less methane in landfills, lower pressure on land, and all the things that we have here. So we have a commitment in sustainable agriculture and regenerative food systems that's signed by all the companies here, that we scale regenerative agriculture, we reduce food loss and waste, advance traceability, and promote health and sustainable diets, and help the food chains absorption of this. So we really expect that the conference push also something that is very important, that is called blended finance solutions, combining this public and private capital to fund this, to fund the innovation, to fund the solutions that are already in place, that we can bring to extend shelf life and to reduce loss and waste. So I hope everybody can come to the COP. I'm open to answer any questions regarding that. And it's a pleasure to be here with you and to be able to deep down some of the questions regarding Brazil and Latin America. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Alessandra, for that, and congratulations on the progress. And I just want to thank all of our speakers for being with us. We're now going to use the remaining time to answer some questions. So I'd like to actually invite all of the speakers to please turn their cameras on for this session. We are also joined by Ana Catalina Suarez Pena, who is the Senior Director for Strategy and Innovation at the Global Food Banking Network. So all questions are absolutely welcomed. You can see a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, so you can put them there, or you could also put them in the chat. If you could please include your name, obviously, and if you are with a media outlet, the outlet you are with, and if you would like someone specifically to answer your question, please detail that in the request. So I would first like to ask Anna about the opportunity that you are seeing for NGOs, whether they be environmentally focused or focus on other parts of the food sector, to be engaging with governments around the NDCs. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Elisa. Thank you very much. I think the space is growing. It's a very collaborative space. NGOs are absolutely essential to achieving climate targets. It's simple, not possible without their work. They provide critical environmental and social services, often in communities and in communities that are underserved and overlooked by formal systems. Their contributions range from climate mitigation and adaptation to advocacy and education about what climate means. The work is deeply collaborative right now, like what I'm going to say with the work that we are doing with many governments across the regions, Asia, Pacific, Latin America, and Africa, is NGOs are engaging across all the sectors. They are working with governments, private industry, academia, and civil society to support the design and implementation of the national determined contributions. For example, food banks, in particular, they play a unique role by reducing food loss and waste, improving nutrition, and supporting circular economy models. All of these have been recognized as mitigation activities that directly contribute to the climate goals. Then the space is growing, has been, of course, always by the 5 sectors in the climate space, but now, and what manufacturers and companies participating and contributing to what the policymakers were doing. But today, we are seeing that governments are increasing their recognition about the important role that NGOs are playing to provide social and environmental services. But I think one of the key elements that we are seeing that is growing is the circular economy approach that the different NDCs are putting together. As the team, Catherine from RAG was mentioning, the NDC in Colombia is putting food loss and waste and food nutrition in the circular economy part. As Tomás was saying, the food loss and waste is in the circular economy. What we saw with the South Africa NDC, including food loss and waste, is connecting food loss and waste with nutrition, food security in the circular economy chapter. Then is recognizing that we can speak about circular economy and food, and NGOs are the ones that are leading those conversations. Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks so much, Anna. So we have a colleague from the University of Manchester who has asked, could stricter import and export laws that encourage eating local produce be a part of the solution, albeit a drastic one? And do we have data on whether this is feasible and whether it would be perceived as a viable solution by people? Tomás, I don't want to put you on the spot, but maybe you could address that. And then maybe Dana, if you want to weigh in as well. Thanks.
Sure. I think there are different ways to achieve that. So I think if we want to encourage eating local produce, I would think of some other kinds of measures. Like I think those kinds of like import-export restrictions, would likely clash with international treaties in some cases. Maybe in some cases not. So I would say we should go for that aim to encourage local eating, but I think there are different ways to achieve that.
Yeah, I would echo that, Tomás. I think that what we've seen is that in the very local situation where there are more direct relationships and a farmer can pick up the phone and call a restaurant and say, I have a lot of tomatoes that, you know, have hail pox on them or something, that helps because they can really use, you know, that direct relationships allows the product to get used. But that's not happening at that country level. So I'm not sure that import and export laws would be the best way to create that.
I couldn't agree more with Dana. I think that it's of course in a smaller portion, yes, but being a export country, so you will be run off bananas, we will run off of we will restrict your diet to what you produce locally, and that's difficult to a country level. So I think it's not based on import-export.
Thank you so much. We have a question that's actually for you, Laura, and it is, what is the biggest challenge for businesses in the hospitality sector to tackle food waste?
Well, that's a good question. In fact, there are so many challenges, but I would say that the main challenge lies in the human factor. Because, as I mentioned before, this is not about the tools, this is not about the software, the hardware, this is really trying to make people on site understand what is the value of raising food waste. Because, it can be perceived as something which is not valuable, people don't understand why they should waste food waste. So make people understand the value of raising food waste, making them understand how they can better their practices to reduce food waste generation. And so it requires a lot of training, a lot of awareness session, and this is specifically difficult in the food service industry because of the high turnover rate we have. So because of this high turnover rate, it makes the awareness campaigns and the training an ever-ending work, because every time you have new people coming. So it means that, this is never something we totally achieve, because every day we have to do it again and again, so that, this is truly embedded into our operations and into the mindset of people working on site.
Thank you so much for that. I wanted to ask you, Catherine, because I know that RAP has been working on this now, my goodness, for probably 10 plus years, but what do you see as kind of the main barriers to getting countries at this point to be embedding food loss and waste into their NDCs?
I think that's a great question. I think probably the short answer is bandwidth, and just the kind of, with so much information and so many conversations happening, how do you as a country choose where to focus your time and attention? And I think that's why the job for us and as a community, and conversations like this and conversations we'll have at COP30, is to make it accessible, make it easy. I've worked at RAP for a few years, so I've become fluent in the acronyms and the food loss and waste world. And obviously there's loads of complexity to it, right? Like, there's a lot of things that need to happen. There are a lot of solutions that are being tested. It's a really global conversation. And that can feel difficult to access if you're a kind of busy minister or senior civil servant. The thing, though, that we've really got playing to our advantage is that we have, as you've heard on this call, loads of examples of what can work, not just in one market, but in multiple markets of different characteristics, private sector-led initiatives, public sector-led initiatives, engagement with the public. So we've got a lot to offer, and I think our challenge is to simplify that, to speak with a shared voice, accessible language, and really make the case. And I think collaboration, therefore, between us as a community, is why I'm really delighted to be here with so many partners, trying to build a movement which uses some shared language and which makes that case and makes it easy, like removes that friction from countries who are thinking about what to do next, and offering them the kind of quick results, multiple solutions, kind of the economic, the social, and the environmental benefits, and make it as easy as possible for some very busy people who've got multiple pressures on them.
Okay, great. Thank you. We are very close to ending our time together, but as a closing question, I wanted to invite each of the speakers just to give one sentence on what are your hopes for COP30? And we also had a question come in saying, do we believe that most of the work on food loss and waste in terms of climate action is in front of us or behind us? So if you want to try to tie everything up in a bow, we'll just do a quick snippet for each speaker before we close. Alessandra, can I ask you to go first, please?
Yes. I think I'm an agronomist by training, so I've been with the farmers more with the other part of the industry. But for me, I've been in pitches of startups, see a lot of solutions. So for me, COP30 has to be around also to finance blended finance solutions to get the money where we need. So all over the world, all over the countries, but we have to land all these big numbers that we call about trillions. Where are they? We need to get to the right place. So that's my expectation for COP30, the implementation arena.
Thanks. Dana, what about you?
Yeah, I think we have seen, to the question, I think we have seen good momentum in several country governments, either with them putting it in the NDCs, or having national strategies or plans. But I do think there's a big opportunity to reach another kind of tranche of countries who have included perhaps a methane goal in their NDCs, but not anything specific to food loss and waste. So my hope is to reach those countries and kind of show them how possible it is to achieve part of those methane goals with a plan to reduce their food loss and waste, and kind of help them see all the resources that are already out there to create that plan.
Laura, what about you?
Yeah, I would say that much of the work is ahead. But what is very important, I think, for food loss and waste to have the place it deserves within the COP30 is to start making the connection between all the different environmental impacts related to food loss and waste, and also all the social inequities that can be tackled by tackling food loss and waste, because this is really all about fixing the dysfunctions of our food system, which has environmental impacts, of course, but also social impacts, which can be a lever to give it the place it deserves.
Catherine.
Yeah, the work is ahead. Only 30 countries this year with those NDC commitments, over 160 to go. I think we can safely say the work is ahead of us. I'm hoping at COP30 to play my role in trying to inspire some of that change, but also to be inspired and to connect with all of you guys on the call, but also hopefully many others, and try and build that sense of movement, because it's people that will create this change, and it's people that must benefit from the change too.
Thank you. And Tomas, I'll ask you to leave us with your last words.
Thank you. I would say, in the momentum question, right? I can't really speak for the situation in other countries because I'm not really that well informed, but I would say that in Chile, definitely it is a moment where there is increasing momentum. We are also at the moment where in a few months we're going to have a new government, so I really hope the new government keeps the momentum. And regarding COP30, I'm not one of the negotiators. I'm not really, I don't really know the details of the issues that are going to be discussed this year, but I think that we all really hope that in all COPs we reach concrete solutions, and we see a general will to agree on those and will to recognize the urgency of our environmental problems.
Thank you so much. I'd like to thank our excellent panel of speakers for lending their time and expertise today, and all of you for joining us. So as a quick recap, the Global Action Drive, which is this collaborative effort of non-state actors working to support governments and businesses to help integrate food loss and waste prevention and reduction into their climate approaches, today released a new publication. It's called A Practical Guide to Embedding Food Loss and Waste in Climate Policy. You can see it at www.champions12.3.org. We are also going to be sharing a recording of this webinar to your email on Monday, and it will include Spanish translation. And so I just want to thank everyone for being with us today. If you plan to be in Belém for COP30, we invite you to join us for several sessions on food loss and waste on November 12th, and we'll be sharing those details to your email. We look forward to connecting with you either virtually or in person sometime soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.